Part of what I find, and I'm glad that we are represented by government, is as innovators to be made to feel guilty of monetizing our creations.
It's your place to innovate and tell us how we then protect your innovation.
At the end of the day, there's not a single public school that has 1 shilling of a budget to spend on digital content.
April 1st, 2016, Paul Mugambi, the CEO of Kitabu, which is a textbook subscription online platform, held a digital content creation expo at Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. The panelists who attended the expo were Kitabu, M-Pesa Foundation, Microsoft, Intel, Ministry of ICT, and BRIC. Stakeholders in education content creation attended in large numbers. They included Elimu TV, which is a free-to-air station that streams secondary education content, KICD, which comprises of hardware, software, and connectivity tools to enable learning, and others such as eKitabu, Tech Republic Africa, and Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Stakeholders had exceptional ideas which they portrayed at the event.
Kajembe aliishi karibu na mto.
So through repetition the child can learn how to read and even the words themselves.
Various downfalls occurred differently for every stakeholder. Through this event, they got a chance to interact with software developers who shared their experiences and solutions they found along the way.
I'm a co-founder of Tech Republic Africa. It's before even I started Tech Republic, I was running my own consultancy firm. So I was developing software solutions for companies across Africa and even in Europe and America. And one challenge that I had was, since I was a small company, if I was looking for people to employ, I would get people, but the quality which the quality of people would get were often not something that I was really comfortable with. And I studied in Germany. I did my bachelor's and master's there, so we were taught to actually do engineering at a really, really high rigorous standard. So when I was dealing with people, a lot of people came from the university. I always had that challenge, trying to bring them up to that standard where I thought that this is where we need to be if we're going to be software engineers. So when we looked at that, we decided that let's see. If we want to create people who are engineers and they can compete at a global level, like you said. When we're talking about competing with other nations, I believe that we should aim to compete with countries like America, Germany, UK, not Malawi, something like that. We should really aim to have that standard up there. You can't compare how you look with a vision of muddy water. You know what I mean? You have to compare yourself with somebody who's something with such a high standard. So we said, okay, let's develop a program for children where young kids can come and then we teach them how they can become engineers from a young age, and then we teach them that knowledge at a high standard. So that if they go through a couple of our sessions, that by the time they reach university age, that they'll be good, the skill level will be as good, even better than somebody who's completing university at that stage. So based on that, we formed Tech Republic Africa, and at that time we didn't have money. It was beginning of last year, so it was just a really good idea. And we decided that let's approach a couple of partners. So we went to USIU. I think a lot of you know it, and we asked them if we can use their labs during the holidays because they're just free. And we can bring kids there, we charge them a small fee and provide for them food, transport, and each of them get a computer. And then we just come up with a curriculum and teach them. So when we were developing a curriculum, we thought that we can't just do the normal thing. We can't just go there and say that we'll teach mobile development, we'll teach hardware development. We said we need to teach the content in an engaging way in which the kid will come and say wow, I didn't know I could learn this much in such a fun way. So we changed the name of the subjects to hobbies. So we said, if you like gaming, if you like sports, if you like dancing, if you like social media, there's a specific track that is there for you.
In terms of saying, protect the market, let's start We want that consumer, that student, to have the best product at the best price, affordable price. Right now, many things are expensive for us. So for us saying that, for instance, Uber should not be in this market, that would not be fair. Because there's many consumers that are very happy with the service that is there. They're getting more security, they know who the driver is, the driver knows who they are, timing and so on works for them. So I don't think it's government's place to stop innovation. Let me use a crude example. Safaricom, because they're a large company, decides to give an individual a phone who never had a phone before. And industry is saying, no, don't give that phone to that person because you're Safaricom. Everyone that's an operator must give that person a phone first for you to allow that to happen. It doesn't make sense. Even the internet in the other markets, the way it started, it didn't start with everyone providing that content. The consumer can choose. And so in my view, free basics helps people, first of all, understand the value and the quality of the internet, so that they can then choose between, how they spend their money on different things of entertainment or use the internet. So in this instance, we're not going to stop people offering free internet because they say they're big. People must have access.
How can we use smart technology to better deliver education in Africa? That was the big billion-dollar question, or billion-learner question. We wanted to use the technology that was already penetrating these markets, not try to figure out the hardware distribution plate, but to go look at the technology that's already spreading. The cheap, low-end smartphones that are now spreading through Kenya and other African countries. What if that could be the vehicle to deliver education? And if it could work, then you could potentially have one of the most scalable education solutions that's ever been attempted. So we went out to Tanzania, which was chosen for various reasons, but among them, large community of Swahili speakers. We wanted to try it in an African language. And we interviewed families in their households, we went to schools, interviewed teachers, and essentially we found out that there was a huge lack of reading material in people's homes.
Well, as two hats. The first is as Elimu, we digitized upper primary content, revision content. We also developed literacy applications, so a lot of stories that children can go through, a curriculum aligned, and they can learn how to read letters and so on. So I'm going to talk a little bit, rather than about what we're good at, about why we struggle to scale. So how are we going to scale? If you're a not-for-profit, you can continue giving things away for free and get donor funding, but we weren't in that position. And we insisted that we wanted to be a sustainable organization, we wanted to be a for-profit Kenyan company, and really prove the sustainability of the market. But there wasn't a market, especially not in the public sector. And everyone said, well, you can always sell this content to middle-income families, but that's not who we started Elimu for. We didn't start Elimu saying, let's help the students who go to Makini schools and Riara schools. So again, we were a little stuck for scale over there. And then we would go to schools, non-formal schools, and they would have a little bit of money, and they'd be willing to pay us monthly. And they said, this is great. We've used the Elimu upper primary revision content for so many months. We're getting better scores, better test results. Our children are problem solving better. They're more socially engaged. We have a lot of extended learning content focused on responsible citizenship. But we don't have a computer lab. We don't have tablets. We don't have smartphones. How are we going to access this content? So without hardware and infrastructure, that was our second blocker to scaling. And so that's when my transition to BRIC came into play, was to say, let's stop getting hardware. We bought so many tablets from China. Let's stop bringing in hardware and solutions that are built in Tokyo and Toronto and trying and using them in Nairobi and Turkana. That's not what they're designed for. A ruggedized device is, in the States, is developed for apple juice, not for the kind of dust that was breaking our devices over and over again. Dust and chalkboard dust. So what a ruggedized device looks like in Africa should be very different from what comes out of China.
So the first thing we embarked on, the partnership of Expo partners, for example, Safaricom, Business, KICD, Samsung, and others, we thought the first thing is to assume every child and every staff member has no knowledge about ICT, doesn't know even what a computer is. And we say, let us all be exposed to all these computers, devices, and what they do and what they can do for learning and teaching. And therefore we got some support through Safaricom, and then Samsung gave us some tabs, and each tab gave us some content, and we had some teachers engaging into that, especially Kiswahili and English. And I have one of my teachers, Celestine, was very practical in applying the digital content to the students. And we also use the approach of building the curiosity of the students, so that the students will be able to build a lot of interest, so that the students will also engage the teachers, so that the teachers can also be able to be a mile ahead of the students in terms of the engagement of exposing themselves into ICT. So the students challenge you as a teacher, and you go back and say, no, I have to be better the next day. And we've seen that working very well. And one of the things our teachers have been able to do, and especially English and Kiswahili, we have, where we have very good smart tabs supported by Samsung, and very good content. And I would like to ask Celestine very briefly how it works.
Now Samsung gave us about 23 tablets, and there's a control tablet for the teacher, and there's also the mirror, through which this mirror will function like the traditional chalkboard. So the teacher has full control of the class. The teacher on her tablet is able to see what each student is doing on their tablet, and mirror that on the control, which is the screen to the rest of the class. A teacher can lock out a student who is not concentrating, can lock all the tablets at the same time. A teacher is able to administer an exam. The system automatically marks this exam, and the results are posted in less than 5 minutes. As a student answers and posts their work, the system automatically marks. So that makes work very easy for the teacher. But again, for the student, it's very interesting, because this has heightened their curiosity, it has heightened their learning skills, and given the nature of our students who are very bright and above average academically, you find them also trying to be innovative in their own ways.
And my question, I think I'm going to ask to all of us and the panelists, that's all the panelists, and this is more to do with the outcomes. Because around September 2015, there was a study that was commissioned by OECD, and that's in connection to the outcomes in relation to computers in schools. And that study that showed that actually the use of computers in school did not improve learning outcomes at all.
I also think RTI did a study like that, right? Yeah.
Did not improve learning outcomes at all. And just to quote one or two points in the report, it says that students who use computers very frequently at schools get worse results, and students who use computers moderately at schools, such as once or twice a week, have somewhat better learning outcomes than students who use computers rarely. So I get this feeling that most of the time when we talk about introducing technology in schools, we are doing it for the sake of maybe keeping up with the time, maybe it's the fad, you know. And when it comes to measuring the outcomes, we are not very, very keen in measuring the outcomes and seeing the relevance. And so this study was commissioned because there was a lot of money that had been spent in school to introduce ICTs in schools, but the results were not proportionate at all. So the question is, do we need computers in schools at all, or should we, what's the approach, what's the most relevant approach?
The thing is this, cloud is making access to information, computing and process and analytics significantly cheaper. It's become a commodity. It's up to us to figure out how to use it. The expertise exists in country, the expertise and the knowledge on how to teach exists in country. We just need to mesh the two such that you've got the best possible outcome for the student. Because at the end of the day, all these interventions have one objective: the student. All technology provides an easier method of delivery and monitoring and tracking. And we just need to see it for the opportunity that it is. I am a technologist, but I have seen so many situations where you get caught up in the technology and forget about your audience. And in this case, the two audiences, the two primary audiences we are serving are teachers and students, and we should never lose sight of that.
The question is this: are you allowing competition in this space, or rather, are you ready to partner with people who are creating similar products? Question 2. During the last forum that we had here at KICD, you mentioned about the caucus that was supposed to be put together to mainly to chart the best way forward. I would want to know how far have you gone in regard to that, and in regard to openness, how are you going to ensure that there is openness when it comes to the caucus, so basically so that it doesn't turn into a cartel?
Establishing the caucus, we are in the process of doing that. As you may remember, we did this on the 10th of March, and immediately we got into planning for another conference for curriculum reforms. So that took much of our time. We are still formulating the caucus, and will the caucus become, what did we say, a cartel? I think the caucus purpose and responsibilities, the TUR, were clearly set out. It will work out the nitty-gritties and the details of ensuring that the Kenya education crowd is beneficial to all. Once they have done that, they have no business staying there as a caucus, as a cartel. And we as a government institution, we cannot be a cartel. We have remained open as KICD, and we remain open. So don't be worried about the caucus. It will be well done. After finishing with the TURs, it will be disbanded. And if we want a steering committee or something else, it is for us to say. The Kenya education crowd does not belong to KICD. It belongs to all of us. We are the ones who will be saying what we want in it. If there's some improvement we need, we will all be saying, can we improve here? And we'll be listening and going towards its implementation.
The question is, what works for Kenya and the education system currently? Who are the players? How do we make sure that teachers are not alienated? How do we make sure that content providers are not alienated and threatened? How do we make all these elements work together? In tech, I think one of our biggest challenges is to communicate to business people about technology solutions and vice versa. And I'm just wondering, what would be the best strategy for Kenya? Would it probably be easier to begin from the known to the unknown? I know we have standards, and the standards are good for a long-term project, but in terms of practical implementation on the ground, do we probably want to go with what teachers and students know very well, textbooks, and begin with that? Then be able to clarify the issues that Alex raised, that when they were getting into the digital sort of marketing space, the problem was in standards. People don't know what form of content should we have. And then you have distribution, and then you have monetization, and what have you. So will you probably be, and maybe this is something I need to get a bit more from Mr. John Kimoto, in terms of the strategy, the process. What is the proper way for us to be able to get value for students and not to alienate any of these other partners who are in this space?
Open education resources. If you looked at the standards, there are even standards for open education resources. Because we are saying if we are talking about quality assurance, the first thing to do is quality assurance. Make sure it meets standards before you even say whether it is commercial or open access. So I want us to underline that area of quality assurance and curation of content. Then after that, we can talk about the financial or non-financial. So open education resources are welcome, but then they have to meet the standards. They have to be categorized accordingly, so that they are not coming to displace what my sister here is making to do a living, but they are also coming there to meet that which is a standard like they are. Are we worried about competition? No, we would rather encourage it. Because that way together then, we'll be responding to technological developments and we'll be supporting each other. But we are answering to one area of where do you get approved content. The issues that Alex Kinomugisha talked about, that we don't want to go to the World Wide Web and look for this and that. We are not worried about that. We are saying, under the Kenya education crowd, you get the quality assured content, and quality assured content only, the one that meets standard. And it is educational, ethical practices will be there, securities will be there, and everything that is good. But competition, yes. Actually, even after we do the standardization of your content, we can even contain it in the online audit book. And if you wish to go and host it elsewhere, it's okay. We have been able to stimulate and tell Kenyans, these are the quality assured products for education. And that is our business.
Fine. For me, it's just great to be able to network with people who are doing similar things. And we're all working towards the same goals here. You know, I don't think about everyone here as competitors, because the only competition is kids not learning. That's the default outcome. The kids don't learn effectively and they don't finish school and they don't really go on to lead productive, fulfilling lives. So the competitor is not the other company. The competitor is default lack of education, lack of learning. So that's the main obstacle.
And what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that digital content creators are going to face, or are going to face in the future, or are facing right now? Or personally, what are some of the challenges?
Okay, so there's a few challenges in the digital space. The first, which I think is a challenge that's getting solved, is access to devices and to connectivity. Anybody who started an ed tech company in Africa 2 years ago would have found the market extremely small of schools or children who had access to devices. Now I think that's changing. Already mobile penetration in Africa is very high, and by the year 2018, more than half of the installed base, more than half of the phones available in Africa are going to be smartphones. And there's a lot you can do education-wise with a smartphone. So that, I think, is being solved. The remaining problems are to do with how do you integrate it into the school, into the curriculum, how do you get teachers to use it effectively. These are huge problems to do with teacher training, curriculum development, and mentality and culture of education. And in the home market, the consumer market where I'm focused, how do you get parents to really care about their children's education beyond just what they receive on an exam, but to care about what's going on inside that child's head and to prepare them for life. And I think those skills that kids are going to need in the 21st century, whether it's here in Africa or elsewhere in the developed world, is moving more and more towards not knowing a certain amount of things, but knowing how to acquire new knowledge at the click of a button. And my goal is to see as many children as possible independently and self-sufficiently seeking out knowledge through the internet in order to find answers to their questions.
So maybe a final comment from you?
Well, I just say I'm really happy to be in Nairobi, launching my company, and I'm looking for co-founders and partners out there. So if anybody wants to reach out, as I said, look for Inuka's story on Google Play Store, and you can always find me on Twitter as well. It's at Inuka app.
My name is Esther Gashisho. I work at Kenya Institute of Curriculum Developer. I'm an e-learning expert. I'm mostly dealing with development of digital content, creating standards on the quality digital content, and as well as developing and preparing online programs for training and development. I have been working here been in the e-learning since 2006, and last year, July, I did receive a global award on excellence in e-learning that was awarded during the World Education Congress. Before that, in 2011, I had received another TIGA award that is run by the UN, Continental Award, again in excellence in using IT in public service. Generally, what I always say about ICT, it's like I didn't land in it by choice. Circumstances led me to be in IT. But it all requires you to have an open mind, because when I came to it, I was skeptical. I remember even my thesis, when I was doing my master's, I had to hire someone to type up my work, do corrections and stuff like that, simply because of that technophobic mentality that people have, that IT is too technical and you didn't really know what to do with it. But once I moved into it and started developing content, that became the beginning of everything. There's so much that you can do with technology. There's a lot of creativity involved in it. And with an open mind, you can just do about anything. In fact, you wonder, what were you doing without technology? So I'd like to encourage ladies especially who think that this is a male-dominated field, that we ladies also have it. We are more creative in a way, and we only need to put in our creativity to action and bring in technology to help us do that.
Organizers of the event were satisfied with the impact the event had on everyone in attendance.
My name is Paul Mugambi. I'm the CEO of Kitabu. Kitabu, in conjunction with the KICD, have hosted this particular event for digital content developers. As Kitabu, what we do is we've developed content, a platform that where we put digital books from publishers and we lease them out to users. Yeah, actually the expectation of today's event was to bring together all people within the tech world and the content developers, as well as publishers and regulators as well. The whole idea is to help all of us under one roof be able to look at this issue of digital content and be able to speak with one voice. Our expectations were met because from morning we had the Cabinet Secretary, ICT, who came, and he endorsed actually this meeting, and he actually challenged us as content developers and the tech, edtech people, to come forward and to be able to advise government on what needs to be done. So I can say, to a large extent, yes, our expectations were met, and even the attendance was very good. We've had people from various companies, from the very big multinationals like Windows, Intel, to the very small ones, and all of us were able to converse and to relate. My advice to people who would like to develop content is one. First and foremost, before you develop content, is to establish what the need is. What need are you meeting? Then, once you've understood the need, then it's also good to know who are you developing it for.
The target.
The target market. And once you've known the target market, then you can build the content for that particular individual. Because you see different levels of people at different levels. If they're very small children, then you need to put into consideration these are very young people, they may not be very tech savvy, and they might need more entertainment at the same time learning. But if you're doing it for the maturer, older people, then you can build some serious stuff.